Hey, dear co-creators. I have been thinking about you and having all sorts of things that I want to talk with you about. And it has been a fairly busy time. So I'm really delighted that it was an interesting synchronicity why I'm able to be here with you right now. So the topic that I wanted to connect with you on is this idea that I heard from Lewis Howes, and I will link in the description the interview that I was listening to with him and Jay Shetty. Um, and he said this thing, how he uses the idea of I have hindsight now. And it's very similar to the premembering idea that I learned from Martha Beck, that I kind of transmuted in line with some thinking that I learned from Kwasi Johir. So as you can probably tell, I am constantly listening to podcasts, YouTubes, reading books. My greatest passion is learning, and most especially learning about what it is to be on this planet as a human. And yeah, it's what I do when I get to choose what I want to do. And so I'm just love it. And I'm loving how all these different things are kind of coming together for me right now in this idea of understanding that sort of everything is a perspective. Everything is a choice about what perspective you choose. Okay. So this living with hindsight now idea is really lovely because it gives you that we have a framework for hindsight, right? We're like, hindsight's 2020. Like, if I could look back and tell myself 10 years ago, what my life is right now, I may not have resisted some of the things that came my way then, right? So, trying to think of an example. Oh, definitely, I would not have attempted suicide um, when I came out and thought it was the end of the world, that certain people weren't okay with that, because now I have the framework that there's like a whole billion other people who are totally okay with it, right? So I wouldn't have had the same set of understanding, and I wouldn't have needed to take such a desperate action. So the hindsight now idea is really fun to me because we already all have personal experiences of being like, oh, that thing I desperately wanted, I'm so glad I didn't get it. Or, oh, that thing I desperately didn't want to lose, I'm so glad it fell apart or I lost it, right? Um, I remember there was a job that I was like, this is absolutely perfect. It's the best possible job. It meets all of my needs. I am going to go interview. I felt great about the interview. I was like, there is no good reason why I shouldn't get this job. I am so qualified. I'm so the right person. I didn't get it. And I was like, stunned, honestly. I thought it was totally like done deal. And I was shocked. And I was just so like, what? And then 2 weeks later, I got offered a job that was like, didn't even know was available. That was way, way better. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is the clearest, like closest in moments example of being like, I'm so glad that I didn't get what I wanted. Right. So I love this hindsight now idea because we all have that reference point, and we can say to ourselves in a moment of being like, something's not going the way I want it to go. We can go, I have hindsight now. I am going to rest in the fact that I know that I'm going to look back on this and be like, yeah, I'm so glad. This, or even if we don't have the like, I'm so glad it didn't work out, we can have the like, wow, I see the learning that I had through that experience and how valuable that is, and how that learning through that experience really is a huge reason why I am who I am today. So that hindsight now, I think, is a really fun little offering to give yourself in the midst of a difficult situation. If I had hindsight now, what would I think about this situation? Or I receive hindsight now to remind myself that I'm going to be grateful for this. I'm going to see the learning in this. I'm going to um, be at peace about this. And then pairing it with the identity shifting and the premembering, I think is a really cool idea. And also, Lewis Howes talks about this in another little chunk of the interview, how he often will visualize himself, sort of his ideal self that Quasi Joe here talks a lot about developing, right, in his identity shifting stuff. Envision his ideal self and how his ideal self carries himself through things, how his ideal self walks, how his ideal self dresses. Both of them talk about this. And Lewis Howes talks about bringing that image up in the moment of like, all right, I'm making this decision or I'm experiencing this experience. And how do I want to support myself through it? I'm going to think about how this sort of future self or ideal self would carry themselves through this, right? And the Martha Beck premembering, she uses it more in like sometimes she'll have a situation, she's like, oh, I already saw that, like she saw herself buying a ranch in California and then like it all happened. And that, I think that's totally a cool way to look at it. I like to think of it like I do journaling that I call premembering. That is, I think about the future and I write about it as if it's now. So I start with, I am so grateful now that, which I learned from Wesley Virgin and Bob Proctor. They both sort of use that phrasing. I'm so grateful now that, and I'll write like, that I'm experiencing this beautiful ease in my relationship with my child, that I've really surrendered the idea that I'm meant to control my kiddo or to fix every problem that my kiddo has. I'm so grateful that I am just able to support and celebrate and affirm and encourage my kiddo to reflect back on their own knowing, these kind of things that are desires of mine, right? That's how I want to relate to my kiddo. And I often still have times when I'm like, should I fix this? Should I make this not happen? Should I try to set a rule? Should I blah, 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 blah? And my true self wants to be just like this really supportive caregiver who is offering resources and support during this transition time of my kiddos growing up years when there's some dependency, and giving my kiddo every opportunity possible to find the true self and to connect in with the true self and operate from that true self. So my premembering is on any topic. So it could also be like, I'm thinking about starting a podcast. I'll just go ahead and say I am starting a podcast. It's on the schedule for this weekend. And so I might do some premembering journaling about that. And I'm speaking in the present tense as that self who is doing the thing that I've not yet done, as my like sort of ideal self, speaking from that hindsight almost, so I might write like, I'm so grateful now that I really enjoy making the podcast, and that people are feeling encouraged by it, and that I'm having really interesting conversations with my guests, and I'm feeling authentic about offering it, and I'm feeling able to take breaks when it doesn't feel authentic. And so I sort of write about the mindset of what I desire to have in that situation, and I write about all the wonderful things. So I might even, we're moving in a couple of months, and I might even write like, I'm so grateful now that I had this beautiful day sitting in front of the wood stove, because we're going to have a wood stove there, and I just took some time to do some art and really gaze out at the beautiful woods in our backyard and listen to the crackling of the fire, and that I was able really to be present with myself and enjoy the evening, right? Hasn't happened. But in one sense, I do believe that visioning um, greatly, that's a huge like likelihood that those things are going to come true if I spend time visioning them in that kind of detail, just sort of like the Olympians who do that. But I also feel like, regardless of like law of attraction or creating your reality, regardless of any of that stuff, it feels really good now to go to my journal and write about all these like positive things and write about this person that I really um desire to be, and write about how they experience things. It's so cool to see the opportunity to you know me in that version is such a cool person. And so I love spending time like getting to know like what they think about and what they experience. And it feels good now, right? And that hindsight now feels really good too, to be like, okay, here we are. This morning I had like a little like I said, I had a miscommunication around some time changes. And so my session, I thought it was at this time, and the other person thought it was at this time because of the time zone change. One of us had a time zone change and the other person didn't. Um, so I um, was able to be like, okay, like I have the like, oh, I'm sorry, that's a bummer. It didn't work out the way we planned. Can I offer you some other things? I didn't write them back like, yay, this is great. Like I have hindsight now knowing that like this all worked out because you probably needed this and I wanted to do this YouTube video. I didn't do that. I'm not going to walk around like watching things sort of go like not how they were planned, or even if harm is done or something, and be like, hindsight now, like this is awesome. But inside my own head I can have that conversation and be like, oh, fascinating. I um can't wait to sort of see what this ends up being. And like, I'm going to trust. I think that's the biggest thing, is just it gives you the ability to trust it and be like, I trust that this is what was meant to be, and that like my time now can be spent engaging with whatever is present and available and offering itself to me, um, and trust that whatever is sort of meant to be with this time zone snafu um, is is solid enough that I don't have to have like spend a lot of time in regret or a lot of time in like trying to fix it, right? So it just is like, I think sort of my slogan is like, it may not be true, but it makes it feel better. It's like, ah, I don't know what else it would be like that. It's like, does it make it feel better to, if someone like is going to get a shot and someone's like, oh, if I like rub it beforehand, it'll be less painful. It's like, maybe not, but maybe just psychologically, it's kind of like placebo effect. So a lot of this spiritual stuff, I don't think I'm going to be able to prove it in my lifetime. Um, but I feel like placebo effect, if nothing else, is worth it for me. It makes it more fun to be alive and be interacting with things that don't go according to plan for me. To be like, all right, hindsight now, or like, what would my future self or my ideal self experience? How would they experience this? It just makes it feel nicer for me. So if it feels nicer for you, awesome. Excuse me. If not, as always, take what you like and leave the rest. If there's nothing that you like, head somewhere else. Um, we are not for everybody, right? We don't have to be, and that makes sense since there's several billion of us. Uh, Ah, thanks for having this conversation with me. As always, I will put some links, especially the conversation with Jay Shetty and Lewis House in the link. I thought it was a fun one. I love you so much, and I'll look forward to talking again soon. Bye.